Welcome back once again. Dr. Hephzibah is your host and speaker in this session. And right here, I would like to bring our minds back to the issues discussed at the United Nations General Assembly session last year, 2019. And the facts are very convincing about climate change. Climate change, of course, has to do with the condition and the quality of our weather over time. And presently, we're experiencing what we call global warming. Global warming, according to the scientific authoritative report initiated by the Intergovernmental Panel set up by the United Nations sometime in 2015, stipulates that global warming is at a record high level of 2.3 degrees Celsius. And the climate quality that we expect the world to be is 1.5 degrees Celsius. Right now, we're experiencing global warming because of the depletion of the ozone layer, which impacts on our ecosystem and our biodiversity, specifically in Africa, Niger Delta, where fossil fuel and other forms of industrial emissions have contributed into the global emission level of 10 billion metric tons into the atmosphere. As we speak today, we're experiencing black suits in Port Harcourt. We're experiencing sea level rise and high tidal wave action in Bayelsa State, threatening homes. And that brings us to the reality of the statement of His Excellency Antonio Guterres, the Secretary General of the United Nations, during last year's UNGA presentation at the Youth Climate Summit. He said that the world is at the verge of extinction, and every one of us are threatened by the impact of nature-based violence. Ladies and gentlemen, some of the actions that we need to take are basically all-inclusive and holistic, because it involves the collaboration of state actors and non-state actors to be able to implement what they call the agreed conclusions on climate change. Now, I will spend my time to talk about some of the characterization or the characters involved in climate change, and also the principles and cause and effect, and the solutions and agreed conclusions. And I will start by one of the leading climate activists from the Nordic countries, Greta Thunberg, a 16-year-old girl who dropped out of high school, left all educational pursuits in the high school, and she read the reports put together by the IP, the Independent Panel on Climate Change, and authored by 91 authors from 40 countries, which is referred to as the singular scientific and authoritative report on climate change. And that report was adopted in 2015 by presidents and heads of states all over the world. About 185 of them adopted that report as the only authentic report on climate change. And today, that report has not been implemented, although there are different conferences and summits and resolutions and progressive development of this climate report. But as we stand today, we are seeing the direct impact of nature-based violence, which the UN Secretary General said is threatening our common existence, our commonwealth, and our future generations. And if action is not taken by present generation, we may not have a future for the next generation to occupy this planet. All our preoccupations are threatened by climate change. And last year, they also talked about universal health coverage, and nations downplayed on it with their national health scheme that only borders on only federal and state civil servants. Today, we are seeing COVID-19 ravaging all our populations of the world, and we cannot undermine these reports and to say that they are not practical or they are not implementable. Today, we see an activist like Greta Thunberg who dropped out of school, and she was able to bring the entire concept of climate change into global recognition, in the sense that she singularly did a one-man squad protest and went to the Swedish Assembly, sat down for days and carrying a placard and talking about climate change until people gathered and decided to know why this little girl has left school and is trying to bring the world to attention. Before we knew what was happening, the entire world started taking recognition of this girl's efforts. London, protests broke out from London, and different Nordic countries came out en masse to support the idea of climate change. And to really understand the impact of this action, she took a sailboat in order from Europe to the United Nations in order to reduce the carbon footprint caused by aviation fuel. And by so doing, it became a widely accepted concept of carbon neutral lift for those of you who want to travel to other parts of the world, you might try to choose an eco-friendly system of transportation instead of using any form of transportation that causes global emission. And this has really impacted us positively. And we, as climate optimists, have decided to review this action and to implement it in our local nation states. And having talked about Greta Thunberg, I would like to also talk about the background of climate change, which I also said that the climate quality that the world is there now is 1.5 degrees Celsius. And if you can achieve that, definitely we are going to be breathing quality air and clean air. And for us to achieve that, we have to follow all the facts that will be reiterated in the next session. So I still want you to hang on and click on to this channel, and also invite your friends to continue with the next session as I talk about the background of climate change and the impact on our ecosystem. Thank you.